And we are going live. All right, as soon as that picture comes up, I'm going to introduce everybody again. It's going to be amazing. It's going to be a much better introduction this time. I guarantee you that. Hello, everybody. All right, there we go.
Oh, my goodness.
We got a picture. We've got a sound. We're back in business, aren't we? We are live. I'm going to press this. I'm just going to check the stream, and then I'm going to do formal introductions while people trickle in. It's good. We just gave them a little extra time to come into the room, to mingle, to get excited. I feel like
we're so excited. We just can't hide it.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. I'm going to tweet out one more time the... See, it seems that the regular live link... I don't know, Tay, I don't know if you've had experience doing the new live feed through YouTube.
It's confusing.
It's very confusing.
Because they're between interfaces, so they're kind of trying to force you into the new interface while still having things adjusted for the old interface.
That's exactly what it seems like is happening.
Instagram.
It's yeah, because they're introducing new features and then taking features away that you're used to. So you're like, what happened to the button that I'm used to? All right, well, I'm going to guess that we're streaming right now because it says there's a button that says end stream. So that must mean we're streaming.
That's a good indication.
What's the little yield sign?
And then there's these URLs. That it says warning. Please check the video resolution, current resolution. That's fine. We don't have to worry about that. All right, everybody. Either way, this is being recorded, and I will be able to upload it afterward anyway. So if this is not streaming, that's unfortunate. But it'll be a nice video that'll live there on my channel. Let's get our energy back up.
Yeah.
All right.
We say a giant yawn from Tay to start it out.
A giant yawn. I'm gonna just copy this because now they have this stream URL link that you can paste, but then it opens up a video player, which I don't get why it just doesn't go to a web page. No, YouTube. Why do you have to keep changing? Constantly in flux like the entire internet.
Like the entire universe.
Like the entire Star Wars universe. All right, well, here it goes. What's up, everybody? Aristotle, Full Throttle here. And today, I have two very special guests with me. We love Corey, Star Wars aficionado, movie fan, and connoisseur, if you will.
Ooh,
that's kind of like the dinosaur of movie people. Connoisseur.
Wow, wine connoisseur.
And a wine connoisseur. So this is how you review. I like it. This is the new way. I got mine over here. And joining us on a live stream from millions of miles away, across the galaxy, we've got the inimitable...
That guy, Tay.
The guy, Tay.
Oh,
pointing.
Tay Zonday, there you go.
The inimitable. The musical...
Infamous.
The infamous, the master of musical memes, Tay Zonday. Nice to see you, Tay. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
I think I made a surfboard comment about your amazing hat, but I'm not going to repeat that. We had a little bit of a technical difficulty going into this, but we started over, and it's going to be great, and it's going to be lovely, and we're going to have a good time. I think so.
It's going to be great.
It's going to be great. I'm just convincing myself right now. So last night, the three of us went to see Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker, the 9th episode in the nonology that is the Skywalker saga. And we've got some thoughts that we want to share with you. But first, we need to tell you, if you haven't seen the movie yet, we're going to spoil the heck out of it. We're going to talk about the plot, the characters, all the things that happened. So if you don't want to know that...
Definitely spoilers.
Absolute spoilers. And if you did see the movie, you might want to join in the discussion in the comments, leave some comments below. And if you didn't see the movie and you don't give a crap, come and join us and we're going to talk about it. So, guys, first impression, what was your overall vibe?
Overall.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll yeah.
I don't know. Save that for the end.
Maybe that's the wrap-up question. Guys.
Yeah.
What's the first thing?
I thought that I mean, it tied together the 9 central movie. I guess there are 11 in total, but the 9 the 9 anthology movies. Well, you don't want to see this one first. Like, this is not the movie if you haven't watched all the other ones.
Right.
I feel like someone would be lost.
I think, there's a lot going. There are moments in this movie that I was a little confused as to what was going on, because they were just kind of going with a lot of things that are set up in previous movies, and then just incorporating them in this movie, not necessarily with much of an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
You know how even if it's a sequel, you can kind of still set up and pay off certain things that are established in the franchise. I think they just kind of went with stuff.
Yeah, I feel one of the unfortunate things in this particular film is that because it's the end, the last one, so they say, and it probably is the last one. It was always the vision of George Lucas that this was a 9-episode thing, and he was making this middle section. I think the unfortunate thing is that they were almost obligated to at least touch on some things that were set up by previous things, even though they didn't necessarily want to go there in this particular film.
Right.
So that kind of maybe got things a little bit muddled. And also, I think there were things that were set up in some of the other movies, maybe the most recent one in particular, that they kind of wanted to, like, forget kind of happened.
Yeah.
And move on with life.
There was some undoing, or at least ignoring, of certain things that have taken place before. Absolutely. You also mentioned earlier when we did our first live.
Wait, what things? What things did they ignore?
I think they've completely scrapped the whole Midichlorians idea. I think that's the new trilogy just completely tosses that concept.
Yeah, and Midichlorians, I guess I like the idea that the Force has some sentience to it,
right.
And can cause life to be created spontaneously, and that's part of the origin story of Anakin Skywalker, is that the Midichlorians brought him into existence.
Yeah, it was definitely one of the things that the fans didn't like about that first prequel, and has ever since been discussed.
Yeah, and to some extent, it was also elaborated in fan fiction or like non-canonical text that how powerful one was with the Force was tied to the amount of midichlorians in their blood. Like, I think there's a scene in episode 1 where they're testing Anakin. They're like, "Oh, his midichlorians are off the chart." He's like has more midichlorians than Master Yoda, or whatever they say.
Which means he must be the chosen one. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's almost kind of this sort of pseudo-eugenic, pseudo-scientific basis for being a Force savant.
Right. Which is kind of it. I guess maybe not ignoring, but undoing the sequel before it, Episode 8, because in that vein, I think Rian Johnson in Episode 8, The Last Jedi, was setting up the idea that anybody could access the Force, and anybody could, and Rey didn't have to be this special person. Her parents didn't have to matter. Yet this movie was like,
they absolutely have to matter.
This movie didn't about face on that. It's like, nope, it totally goes by bloodline.
Yeah, that's one of the things I was alluding to, being like kind of shunned off. Like, hey, we just set up this, but we want to like backtrack now. Yeah,
because Rey's.
I think the Rian Johnson middle movie. I think JJ really wanted to sort of ignore it as much as possible.
Yeah, and I almost feel like JJ had maybe some shadows of ideas that he wanted in the trilogy. Maybe that's giving JJ too much credit, that he was projecting beyond just The Force Awakens. But because this movie, Episode 9, feels like a bunch of movies kind of squished together. It tried to accomplish so much in the time allotted. And it did feel like he kind of... Because you mentioned how they were introducing a new storyline in that's almost extra. They're piling stuff on top of stuff now.
Yeah. If you go back to the original trilogy, the first 3, you're introduced to Darth Vader at the very beginning of the very first one, and he's our villain for the entire thing.
Yep.
Yes, there's the Emperor that's kind of above Vader.
Yeah.
But it's still Darth Vader is our villain. And by introducing the Emperor as his boss gives us an opportunity for Vader to maybe not be as villainous as he's portrayed early on, and to have that moment where he turns.
Right.
And helps defeat and save the universe with Luke. And then in this trilogy, the first movie sort of sets up this Snoke character as the new Emperor, and then the second movie dispatches him.
Yes.
And there's no reason why. And then this movie starts with a brand new villain that didn't exist in these three movies.
Well, yeah, exactly.
In any form.
Well, yeah, exactly. They relied on the fact that you knew he was the villain for the first 6. He was the overarching villain for the first 6, and now they're like, well, he's been there the whole time.
If you're not catching on, we're talking about the Emperor.
Yeah, he survived the wreckage of the Death Star.
Yeah,
and
I think
so. I guess this movie. The idea is, because there's a scene where they're, and this is part of the talking about the previous conversion arc for Anakin Skywalker. Kylo Ren, they attempt sort of this Ren redemption, with him having this conversion scene with Rey in the wreckage of the Death Star. I guess part of it landed on the Endor moon, and they had this recreation of the gutted out room that is the Emperor's throne, and where Luke and the Emperor and Darth Vader interacted. And so it pays so much homage, because you see the Emperor's chair and you see the unique circular window, and you're like, oh, okay, that's a reference to that. But I always thought episodes 7, 8, and 9 really lacked a direction in terms of a strong bad guy. They were looking for I never felt like Kylo Ren was as strong of a bad guy as Darth Vader.
Right.
And it was weakened by the fact that they wrote his character as sort of this worshiper of Vader and wanting to be like him. And
there's even the line where Rey is they're like having that little mind battle, and she fights back and says, "You're just upset you'll never be as powerful as Darth Vader," which is exactly that. It's like they're really doubling down on the fact that he's not even.
They've set him up from the very beginning to not be the villain.
Yeah.
Even though they're wanting to show he is the villain in the Force Awakens, they set him up to not be the villain. We already know he's not going to be the villain. We already know he's going to end up going to the good side. I say no, but we don't know. But like we expect by the way they're portraying it. And that's the way it goes, ultimately, is the way we expected his trajectory to
But then Snoke was always this kind of weird Kmart version of Palpatine. Like, I always thought Snoke was such a weird character because just his voice, his mannerisms, I don't know if the director told the actor, play this just like Palpatine. But it was just kind of like this weird, like, well, we killed Palpatine off in episode 6, so it seemed.
Yeah.
So we need a bad guy, and this is kind of the archetype of the bad guy for Star Wars, and it never really made sense. Snoke was a worse bad guy than Palpatine, and Kylo Ren was a weaker bad guy, weaker Darth Vader, and so the 7 and 8 had this problem of weaker antagonists.
Snoke never did anything, and he never really even had a chance to do anything.
And it was kind of weird that they had to sort of address the whole idea of Snoke in episode 9 as just being some kind of clone abomination that
the Emperor created him so that he could have a voice or something out there still.
There were like Snokes just in like a big vat. You're just like, okay.
A bunch of Snokes. Going back to the very first thing I said about how they introduced this new bad guy for this movie that didn't exist in the other ones. It probably would have worked better had the Emperor made some sort of an appearance in Episode 8 after Snoke was dispatched. Like, you thought you got the bad guy, and you thought you were going to take control, but guess who's actually running the show here?
Right.
And then, like, maybe that's the tension that, like, makes us want to see this movie.
Yeah. I think that is a massive problem with
phone call. Pardon me.
with the new trilogy is the lack of an imposing villain. And you've got Darth Vader imposing, and then he's a guy that has his own master in the original trilogy. You're like, this guy's scary, pretty badass. There's an empire, so there must be an emperor. So that hierarchy is much more threatening.
And they do introduce the Emperor in the second one, albeit briefly.
Right.
But we're like, oh, we see this. We see that Darth Vader's not the one in command.
Yeah.
He's just the one following out the commands.
You mean in Episode 5?
In Episode 5, yes.
In Empire. And we get a glimpse of Darth Vader's humanity. So we start to actually separate him from the big overarching darkness, because you see the back of Vader's head, that he's just a wounded person. And he's actually...
better constructed. If you ignore all that, and you just look at this one alone, I like the use of the Emperor and how he is the bad guy in it.
Yeah, and you were going to say...
Yeah. I mean, it's... I know this is science fiction, but I even within the realm of science fiction, I just kind of have to, like, throw all suspension of disbelief out the window, because this idea of Palpatine packed away on this secret, inaccessible planet, building a fleet of Star Destroyers that each have their own planet-destroying weapons somehow on the belly of a Star Destroyer, when previously, like, the Episode 7 had that thing like had to suck up a star and shoot the Star Killer base. It took an entire star to have the energy to, or a Death Star, which is a massive thing. It's like, I don't know. I guess they miniaturized their planet destructive capabilities.
No, if there is an Episode 10, I expect that people will just have a planet-killing device in their pocket holster.
In their pocket. It'll just be like, hey.
I don't like you.
I don't like that planet.
I've got my Smith & Wesson planet killer, right?
Well, that's the thing. I feel like, for me, a lot of the thing was the idea that this movie was a lot of movies smushed into one. The pacing was at such a high clip that they were like, this idea, this idea, this idea, this. This is next, this is next. And then another thing that I feel like that goes hand in hand with that is the idea that there was just such convenient little tying of loose ends. Like, okay, we're just going to have a whole fleet of Star Destroyers with planet-killing weapons. Boom. And, they all left being stormtroopers because the Force told them. And the Emperor's been alive this whole time.
Yeah. There's and this doesn't necessarily go for this movie, it goes for, like, a lot of sequels, is that they always take whatever happened in the previous one. They're like, well, if that happened and that was this big thing, then whatever we've done now has to be even bigger.
Right.
But now they've done that 9 times over. It has to be 9 times bigger. So it can't just be a Death Star. We've already done that twice.
Yeah.
A Death Star. It's got to be 100 Death Stars. It's got to be 1,000 ships that can be Death Stars.
Yeah.
And it's just
Death Stars built in.
Yeah, it's just too much. It's too much to believe. You saw it with The Matrix, where there's a billion Agent Smiths. It's like, come on. And they don't look good, and they're not realistic, and it's now become like, come on.
I was rewatching The Matrix a couple months ago, and the CGI just looks so terrible now.
Yeah.
With the Agent Smith battles. But, yeah, it's... I noticed that about this movie, like, every shot. Like, I guess it was all on a soundstage, because, like, every... I don't know if they had any practical sets, but the CGI has definitely improved since George Lucas did the prequels. But yeah, it's it did kind of have that finality where it's like, I don't think you can top. You can't top like Palpatine, who looks like a corpse here.
Yeah.
Like he's literally like, I guess he's on life support through some mechanism or some robotics, and then he sucks the life out of Kylo and Rey and comes back into his familiar self. But then there's that final scene where he uses force lightning to I guess stun or suspend the entire attacking fleet. I don't know. Like there was just so much happening so quickly. I liked Billy D. Williams.
Oh, he was great.
I mean, he brought back. I wish there was more of that.
Yes.
He brought back a sense of there being levity and wit.
Swagger. Yeah, wit
and swagger.
Yeah.
To the movie.
I was really impressed with Billy D. and Lando. I thought, because I'd been watching Billy D. just be cool, older Billy D. Like, hey, how's it going? I'm Billy D. And I've seen him in all the interviews, and he had this just laid back, chill, kind of older guy, not working at the same clip that he used to. And then when he came in on screen, it was like, there's Lando. Lando's energy. He filled up the screen when he walked in, and he just had that charisma that Star Wars might have been lacking.
On that subject, I felt this film did a good job of bringing a lot of that wit and swagger overall. Particularly to Poe, who I didn't care for in The Force Awakens very much at all, and he was very cardboard in Last Jedi.
I did not like him in that either. Yeah,
and in this one he was a lot more, say, like a Han Solo, where he had more charisma, and he's a charismatic guy. He's such a great actor.
Oh, it's great. Yeah.
And I think this is the worst role I've seen him do. Yeah. Not in this particular one, but in the whole series.
Right.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, Oscar Isaac is really being
I love Adam.
Adam Driver is another one that I like him in a lot of other things. I watch him in, and not so much in this. I don't hate him as much as some other people tend to in this role, and I don't think it's his fault. I think it's the material and the way that they've written his character, and I think he is actually playing it the way that is probably best played for how it's been written.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And he does a good job with that. Absolutely. What were you going to say about Adam Driver?
Oh no, I was just gonna yes and that and say Adam Driver as well. Kylo is one of my least favorite role of his. I love him and everything else that I see him in.
Yeah.
And he's actually kind of managed to. I don't know if Star Wars is a stigma or a curse, but they say that Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher kind of had the Star Wars curse, where everything else they did they were never really able to.
Well.
Harrison Ford was able to break out of that, so I think Adam Driver has done a great job and he's one of the hardest working men in Hollywood. He's in 2 or 3 different movies each year, and
he's always really good. He's always Adam Driver. I think the world is starting to sort of wake up to Adam Driver right now as being one of the finest actors there is right now. That's working today.
Yeah. Now, did anybody else catch kind of the reference where when Lando, it's his job to go up in the Millennium Falcon and send out the clarion call for how to get to the Sith planet and rally the ships, rally the people, and then he kind of shows up and there's this wow moment of like, oh wow. All these tens of thousands of ships showed up to attack, and Lando has this line. It's like, it's just the people. The people rose up. The people showed up, and I thought, okay, this is like a very much an allegory for sort of a backhanded allegory for how do you defeat Trumpism and Putinism and totalitarianism. Just like Episode 3 was sort of a.
Exactly.
A statement against George W. Bush and
if you're not with us, you're against us.
If you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah.
I actually really loved that moment, and I think it would have worked and been more powerful had the overblownness of all those bad guy ships and stuff kind of been drawn back.
Right. And
where this little band of people is just struggling to defeat a couple of ships or the Emperor or whatever.
Yeah.
And Lando shows up with the whole galaxy backing him up and hey, look, we're all in this together.
Yeah.
let's fight for what's right for everybody.
Let's fight for the right to party.
It was really nice.
Play Beastie Boys.
It was a little overshadowed, like moment in this film.
I think so too. I think they should have definitely been way more Lando. I think.
Yeah.
They could have leaned into that. I even like the moment where he's like, "Send Leia my love," you know, like you're just like, yeah, Lando, you know, that's
so Han's out of the picture now.
Yeah, he's like, so Leia, you know, I know you and Han on an item, him being dead and all. But
now, wasn't it so weird? I mean, I just found the Han Solo Kylo Ren / Ben Solo scene weird, and I was remarking this to as we were watching it, that you know, Kylo basically committed patricide and attempted matricide,
right?
And sort of by default caused matricide by, you know, Leia needing to be so grounded in the Force to reach out to him that apparently she ghosted herself or caused herself to die. And Harrison Ford has this very brief cameo where he's just like, you know what? It's all okay, kid. You know, I always saw the good in you. I always knew that you were going to be Ben Solo.
Right.
And it's just kind of like, right?
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was done.
Okay. That moment. Sorry, I was just reading comment, guys. It was a good movie. People are expecting way too much. Should have been more Lando. That's it. So they tend to agree with us on that. Definitely agree with that. Should have been more Lando, because that's a good opportunity to bring Billy D or Lando back into the picture and lead, because he's, you know, a part of that OG group. You had General Leia, General Lando Calrissian from Return of the Jedi. He's been a general since Return of the Jedi. He destroyed the second Death Star, lest we forget. Lando is the hero.
Yeah.
He's the one that brought
Why isn't he around in episode 7?
Yeah.
Do they ever even acknowledge his absence?
No.
He's just not there.
I think that's just a big whiff.
And maybe it was Billy D's choice. Like, maybe they're like, hey, would you come do a bit here in this last installment of Star Wars? And maybe he's just like not feeling it. He's older. He can't do these action things. And maybe he said yes, but let's keep it to like 3 days or a week of shooting or something. So I guess we're gonna have to make his part smaller than we would like.
Right. He's like, let's do, as long as we're done before tea time, I'm good. You know, I was actually shocked that Wedge Antilles was in this. Did you guys catch Wedge Antilles?
Yeah, right there towards the end. You can barely recognize him.
Well, that's because that actor who plays Wedge Antilles, he's in all the 3 original movies, actually. He's the only other surviving X-Wing pilot other than Luke, because he peels off because one of his engines gets shot out. And then he's like, my engine, whatever, I gotta go. And then Luke takes on the Death Star and destroys it with the help of Han Solo. He's in the second, he's in Empire, and he's in Jedi. He refused to come back for 7. He's like, no, I'm too much of an actor.
Yeah.
And he refused to come back for 8. I don't even know if he was asked. But that was pretty cool that he decided to do that one shot.
Yep. One little shot that I was like, okay, there's Wedge. He's made it through all of the movies. He's never gotten killed. They did have a number of cameos, and I thought for the most part they handled the cameos well. Yeah. Without really forcing like story plot points with them. Mm-hmm. It was just like you said, there's Wedge flying the ship for like a half a second, and that's all we see of him. Yeah. And he doesn't have a role otherwise. Or even at the very end when we see the Ewoks looking along at the Star Destroyers blowing up above them. Right. And that's all we see of it. Yeah. So like, oh, look, there's Wicket. How cute.
Yeah. I mean, I was very satisfied that Chewie finally got his medal
from the very first one.
From the very first movie. He was excluded. And you know what's funny? Every video that I make about that shows that shot of the award ceremony, the medal ceremony at the end of Star Wars, I put a medal on Chewie. Like, I always put a medal around him. Like, they forget to give Chewie. He's the freaking pilot. He's the co-pilot with Han Solo. How do you ignore that?
Brings up another point here. Before we got started, when we were having some technical difficulties, Tay said that there's been always this discussion about which order did you watch these movies in the order that they were released, or in the order of chronologic order. And bringing that up sort of sets a bookend that the very first one that was released, Star Wars, is now paid off at the end with that moment with Chewie, as well as Rey's final moments on Tatooine at Luke's home. Again, says that the beginning was there with Luke on Tatooine, and the end is there with Rey on Tatooine.
Right. Luke's journey was set off there, and that's where she has come to settle. So it's a full circle, and I like the symmetry of that for sure. You were gonna say, Tay?
I was. No, I mean I can say. No, I mean what I think about a lot is I mean one of the magnetic and charming things about Billy D. Williams is like, I mean I have no ill will with Donald Glover, but I feel like a lot of these sci-fi series, Star Trek is like this too, where they recast the original Star Trek cast, they recast Kirk and Spock and everybody else with younger actors, and they did that with the Han Solo movie too, where Donald Glover's playing Lando Calrissian. And somehow it just seems to me like the actors that they cast in the remakes aren't quite as quirky or unique or they're missing a charismatic something that the original actors had when they played them at the ages that they played them at. And I mean I would say that of the Star Trek remakes too, which obviously JJ was attached to multiple ones, where if I think of like Kirk, if I think played by William Shatner and Spock played by Leonard Nimoy, like William Shatner and Leonard Nimoy are very, very unique people who bring a very unique energy to the screen. Whereas, Zachary Quinto and what's his name? It's not that they're bad; they're just kind of more vanilla. They're more vanilla, dude, frat boy, dude that you bump into the beach or who's modeling on Instagram. And I've always thought that part of that is because now they tell stories with so much more CGI and the worlds are so much larger. It's almost like you need smaller actors, or more pedestrian actors to fit in these larger than life scenes. But I miss the old type of casting, and maybe part of that is selfish because I feel like I'm more of an old school 60s, 70s actor. Like I'm a little bit unique and quirky and different and specific, and I wish they were still casting more people like me in movies.
Your point is definitely taken because it's it's so specific to Leonard Nimoy and William Shatner are unique individuals. Specifically, the way they behave.
Just like Billy D. Williams and Harrison Ford. They're very specific types.
And then what you're trying to do with the younger actors is create a facsimile of their vibe, which they just bring to the role. They just bring that, and then you're trying to actually cop. And a lot of things about acting is being that person, And so when you are just cool like Billy D. Williams, you everywhere you go, you're gonna be cool. So I mean, Donald Glover is cool, but he's cool in a different way. So he's trying.
Yeah, he's cool. He's a fantastic. I mean, I love I'm watching Atlanta now. He's absolutely brilliant.
Oh yeah.
He's a brilliant actor. But I guess maybe that's kind of what it is kind of like when it's more about being a facsimile of a character that's already established. It's different.
Yeah,
It feels
you're entitled to play it the way the other actor played it.
Yeah.
At least to a degree, because that's what we've been introduced to. That's what we see. That's what the character is. So now, like, all right, I guess I have to be Billy D. Williams being Lando.
And particularly with franchises like TV shows and film series, the character is tailored more and more to that person a lot of the times.
Yeah.
So,
rather than vice versa.
Exactly, and that's who we gravitate toward, is the fact that they've kind of become one. The writing and the character and the actor are all sort of fused.
So we have a comment here that says, "Hey, how about that guy from Lord of the Rings? Wasn't he totally off-putting?" Which actually fits into what we're talking about right now. Dominic Monaghan.
Oh, right.
Who's best known as Merry from Lord of the Rings.
Oh, yeah.
And then was subsequently on J.J. Abrams' show Lost. So he's one of those J.J. Abrams guys. He's like, hey, I haven't had any work in a while. Can I have a role in Star Wars? And like, oh, yeah, of course. Who doesn't want to have a role in Star Wars? But I do agree that, like, he was very out of place. Maybe it's because we know him, and it was such a small throwaway little role that it felt very out of place. But maybe it was a role that should have been cast appropriately and not just grab your friend to play this role that has 2 lines.
Yeah.
And the same with Greg Grunberg, who's a great guy. I've worked with him, but he's another one of those guys that was on Heroes, J.J. Abrams' show.
Yeah.
That's a friend of J.J. Abrams, and he was when I worked with him, they were making The Force Awakens. He was super excited to have this tiny bit role. I don't even know if he spoke in that one.
Well, I think he might have had a line. Yeah, he's standing at the holographic strategery map.
But he also feels out of place in this universe. I've seen him in a lot of other things, and I think he's cast well in those other things. But this one, I felt like he didn't quite really belong in the role he was in.
Yeah, I'm not gonna necessarily out Greg Grunberg on this, but I think the time has passed and it's funny. But I also worked on that film that Greg Grunberg was in. He had like 4 days of shooting on it or something like that. And I do set photography, so I was on set, and he was going around showing everybody, because this is before The Force Awakens came out, about 4 or 5 months before the movie comes out, and it was such on lockdown. You know, JJ was like, had posters everywhere. Loose lips sink starships. But Greg Grunberg was going around showing himself in the X-Wing pilot suit on his phone. He's like, this is me. This was me. Like, he was so excited.
So excited.
To be in The Force
And who
Awakens.
wouldn't be? I'd have been over the moon myself, like, to be a part of Star Wars, something I had grown up with, that I had loved, that ended. Yeah. And I never expected to ever be coming back, nevertheless coming back twice.
Right. That was pretty cool. And another funny little thing that I saw him saying in an interview was that when he was filming all of his X-Wing piloting scenes, every time they asked him, or it was like a second or third unit shooting that, and every time they asked him to go to give a reaction like, he didn't do it because he didn't want to get killed off in a montage. So he would just go, no, not doing it. And he would just always be like, yeah. So I thought that's a really good strategy, actors. If they tell you to act like you're dying,
don't do it.
Don't do it as an option.
That's like they stay on The Walking Dead forever. It's like, nope, I'm not.
Should we talk about all the deaths in this movie and how they came about and what their impact was? For the whole thing. Yeah,
real life and on screen, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, I think because I didn't realize. I guess time flies. No, Carrie Fisher died 3 years ago.
3 years ago. Wow.
Yeah, end of 2016.
Huh.
So,
did she die before Last Jedi was released?
Like a year before it. Yeah, I remember that, and I just never thought at the time.
And she'd already filmed all her scenes for The Last Jedi, but so it raises the question, the production question: how much of Carrie Fisher? Because there's a fair amount in this movie, Episode 9. How much of it is CGI?
Yeah, I was particularly impressed with her in this film, visually.
Yeah.
It looked seamless. Whatever they did,
Yeah,
it
no,
looked
it looked
seamless.
very seamless. Like it looked like she was alive.
Yeah.
I don't know how much
Like,
was
you
the
can't-
real, like Aristotle was saying was like it was all outtakes from the previous 2 movies that they used and superimposed her into these scenes with the new actors and the new environments and all that. Flawless, really flawless. I don't know if the dialogue was the old dialogue or if maybe they spliced in some voice actor work when we were not seeing her lips, or maybe just changed her lips, because I mean you can do a lot of that facial manipulation these days.
Yeah. And I guess they hired a voice actor to match her voice in some scenes. You could going into it knowing that they did that. I was a little bit more cognizant and aware of it, but I was very impressed that they were able to do that. But you could also, I was noticing that they were tailoring certain lines because they've only got the lines she has. Like she'll just say like, try to be more optimistic. They have a take of her saying that. So when Snap Wexley says his line, Greg Grunberg says, I don't know what to do, and then Rose Tico says, did you have to say it like that? And then she's like, try to be more optimistic. It's kind of,
yeah. How much did they take that she said and be like, how can we fit this in the actual context of the movie? Again, making it even more impressive that they had her in there so much. Yeah, because she really had a pretty good sized amount of her taking up screen time.
Yeah, and a brief cameo of the young Carrie Fisher during the Jedi training when the mask is revealed.
Less impressive.
Most impressive.
I thought the young Luke was visually more impressive than the young Leia in this one.
Yeah, because he like lifted his visor, it was almost the same shot from Empire.
It was.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that's probably why it was like so.
I think that was very deliberate. Also.
Right. That makes sense.
That moment.
So, I loved what was his name? The new little cone robot. It's kind
Dio.
of
Dio. God.
Yeah.
It's kind of like an apprentice to B2 or whatever.
Yeah.
I just loved everything about that character. As someone who's a little bit awkward and uncertain in a lot of social situations myself, it felt like my spirit animal.
Do you find it a little bit odd that
I'm gonna get you that for Christmas?
We keep getting introduced to these robots that are awkward and quirky, when really shouldn't the robots be the complete opposite of that?
But that's what I love about Star Wars is that the robots are more human than anything.
More human than most of the humans.
Yeah.
So we got a question here. You might have already said this, but did you like the movie? I'd like to really talk about what we really liked about the movie, actually. And the follow-up is what annoyed you. So I guess we'll start with there were several things in this movie that I actually quite enjoyed. I did enjoy, even though it was just kind of a brief moment, the Luke and Leia training. I was like, okay, so Leia does have some background with that. I thought some of the quips were really funny in this one.
I thought the dialogue, because overall, the dialogue with the prequels and as well as the sequels has been weaker than the original trilogy, and I thought they did a good job with the writing here.
That was my favorite thing. That the writing was better, the quips were better, and it felt in place with the original trilogy. With say Empire, really more. Mm-hmm. In particular, I felt that level of dialogue, that level of commitment and wit and character development that was missing from a good number of the other films.
Right.
Coming through more in this one than in the others, especially like I said with Poe. Particularly with Poe.
Yeah.
Maybe I like.
Yeah, I did. There were some funny. I love that moment with Poe and what's her name? Felicity.
The new girl.
yeah, the new Boba Fett. I love that little moment at the end
at
where
the very end.
Oh, wait, the glance.
Yeah, he's like, so can you know? And she's like, and he's like, okay, fine. Yeah, I'll show myself out.
Yeah, unspoken.
Good storytelling. Yeah, exactly. I'll grab that now. Thank you, sir.
There were a number of things I liked about the movie, and as a whole, I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it. It was a good time. I was satisfied with the resolution and how they wrapped everything up. Yeah, it's still got a lot of plot holes and a bunch of little annoyances, but I think they were little annoyances. They weren't like deal breakers.
Right.
Yeah. I did actually like all the callbacks.
Right. Yeah.
I would say, some of them were kind of brief, but I mean, like, even where they're like, whatever the name of that game is on the Millennium Falcon, where they're playing that with Chewie.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
it's kind of an allusion to episode 1 where, Han Solo has that line, well, Wookiees don't rip your arms off when they lose.
Yeah.
They very much leaned into that.
And there was a little kind of character establishing going, well, you're 250 years old, you're really great at this game, and you're competitive. So,
but they didn't mean it.
Yeah.
They were just telling him what he wanted to hear.
Yeah,
and that even calls back to that moment back then
let the
Wookiee win. Just shut up and let the Wookiee win.
That's true. Yeah, I guess because he's a sore loser.
And then, of course, they shut the machine off as soon as he wasn't looking when he said, no, I'm not going to shut it off.
Luke's ghost raising the X-Wing was, I mean, I just kind of accept now that the Force is just this Deus Ex Machina that whatever the plot needs, the Force is able to do that.
That's exactly it. The Force is a plot patch.
Yeah, and like it becomes whatever it needs to be. Yeah, I mean, overall, like I liked it. Overall, it was satisfying. The acting was good. The performances were good.
Yeah.
I felt a larger sense like this was kind of it made an effort to bridge a generation gap. I felt like it kind of took a lot of the storytelling and cinematography aesthetics of millennials and the internet generation.
Yes.
And sort of tried to build a bridge between that and what entertainment was when the original trilogy was made.
Right.
And kind of try and form this lingua franca, this Rosetta Stone, where they can maybe be in intergenerational understanding or peace.
I feel that. That's something I definitely took away from the movie, where JJ was like, okay, I'm going to just go full-on modern filmmaking with homages to classic filmmaking. And I think Rian Johnson's approach in Episode 8 was a little bit more traditional in structure and screenwriting.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of veered away from too much of the JJ sort of exciting, constant pacing and all the camera twists and turns and all the really elaborate...
And the flares.
And the flares, yeah. But yeah, it definitely was modernizing Star Wars.
Yeah, but I also just kind of made it. I look at the sequels and not to devolve this into a red letter media critique of the prequels, but it's like I just wonder, like,
this movie was the worst movie since.
I just want to mean, it's just like, could George Lucas had used a few more camera angles and like a little bit different storyboarding, because the cinematography, and especially in episode 8 and 9, is just so much better than it is in episodes 1 and 2. And it's like, I don't know if part of that is CGI and the technology getting better, but it's just.
I think it goes. Yeah. I think it goes two ways with that, though. And Aristotle was saying that it was just too dense.
It's dense.
There's just too dense. There's just too much happening. They're just trying to do too much, and it just moved from one action sequence to another without any breath, without a chance for us to think about what we just saw and want to feel like something else has to happen before things just keep happening. So you're just trying to keep up with it constantly.
Yeah. Ebb and flow.
The Lightspeed jumping was a perfect example of that. Where it's like they're, Lightspeed jumping is basically like being traveling through space. I guess like it's a flip book of some sort, where it's like you're instantly in another planetary environment, and then another one, and another one.
Yeah, I didn't.
That was pretty much a metaphor for the structure of the movie itself.
I didn't quite understand that bit, though, that he would go into light speed and come out of it, but those TIE fighters went in with him?
Well, I guess they established...
What happened with that?
I guess they established the idea of light speed tracking in the episode before, so maybe they were tracking.
But that also breaks canon, because like in episode 1, Obi-Wan Kenobi remarks when he sees a TIE fighter out in the middle of space, like, well, there's no way a ship that small could be out this far away from a base. And also in episode 1, pardon me, like episode 4, I mean,
the first movie.
The first movie, Han Solo remarks, well, you can't just, what's his line that traveling at light speed isn't like dusting a props kit. Like if you could run into an asteroid belt or run into it. There are all sorts of dangerous things, and this has to be very carefully planned and plotted to travel at light speed.
But that being said, then every single jump he did in this one was into some extravagant maze of things that he shouldn't be in.
It's like he's like coming out of light speed in like the Grand Canyon. Like, wait, hold on.
Let me pop back in. But even Han Solo breaks that rule when he does a light speed jump into Starkiller Base beyond their shield, because the shield, like he's gonna come out of light speed right before hitting the ground on Starkiller Base. So they kind of do away with that whole concept of jumping to light speed being this coordinated event that really takes a lot of telemetry to figure. But we got another question. There are things like the Emperor is magically alive with no explanation, but I still liked the movie. Well, the Emperor, they were like, they needed a bad guy.
Yeah. I read a little bit this morning because I wanted to get some other people's thoughts on things, and somebody mentioned that there was a quick expositional blurb that explained how the Emperor was still alive, or what he was. And if you weren't really paying attention, you missed it. And they didn't go into to explain it to you. So I'm one of those people that missed it, along with Tay. Apparently, all three of us missed it.
Let me see if I can remember how he was still alive.
How and why and whatever.
He just said the Sith live on in him.
But it does bring a good point. Like, we should have gotten a better explanation of how he got here from when we last saw him.
Yeah.
Because there needs to be, because we as humans want that connection.
I kind of connected the dots in my head that, somehow he survived in the wreckage of the Death Star that landed on the Endor moon. Although I guess that was a little bit odd. In some ways, it's a little bit odd and an omission that we don't see Ewoks, because isn't where the wreckage of that Death Star is?
So
correct me if I'm mistaken. Is that's the same Endor moon where the Ewoks were?
I'm wondering.
Isn't it? Like or did it somehow land on some other planet? Maybe it landed on Endor, not the Endor.
They did
That's what I think.
A moon in the Endor system, but they didn't necessarily say that it was the exact same place with the Ewoks.
Right, because it's the moon of Endor, that the forest planet.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering,
that was the water moon of Endor.
Yeah, so that it might have been Endor itself. You never know. So we're losing a stormtrooper here. Yeah, so I'd have to Wikipedia that and see if they were on Endor itself, or if they were on a different moon, or
nearby moon. But that again, if it one way or the other ties together that little mini cameo with Wicket at the end, being in a proximity to seeing the spaceships crashing down or exploding, whatever was all happening to them.
How do you guys feel about the finality of Return of the Jedi being sort of echoed in the finality of this one?
Super echoed, right?
Yeah.
Like the Emperor didn't learn the first time around. Like, if I shoot you with lightning, you're gonna shoot it back at me, and I'm gonna get fucked, right? Can I say that word here?
Yeah, that's fine.
Spoiler alert.
I'll find it and bleep it.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah.
Again.
I was surprised. Well, I guess she didn't tap into spoiler alert. Rey used Force lightning by accident in part of the movie. But I guess that, that's a dark side power, so she didn't use that in the end against the Emperor, which would have been used. What do you guys think about the
but it was his own lightning strikes.
Yeah.
That took him down, and that's what happened in the first one in Jedi as well. It was his own lightnings that he was trying to use on Vader that got turned back on him. Yeah. And this time it was his own lightning strikes he's trying to use on Rey that got turned back on him.
He hasn't learned.
He just didn't learn. Yeah. I mean, this time he wasn't thrown over a thing, and maybe that's the difference. Is we didn't actually see him die. We just assumed that he got thrown in, and that big lightning blast was his death. But maybe it shot him into this other place in the universe.
And now he was just completely
vaporized. He's been regenerating this whole time.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that sort of explains because he did regenerate his hands in that moment. But
I did like the way he was all decrepit, and then as he pulled their life force or the force from them to him, that he was actively regenerating and becoming the
his eyes were glowing again.
Yeah, I like that. That was good. That was a good part.
Well, in some way, and this is a different topic, but I mean, there's a heck of a lot of cartoon carnage, I guess, that's kind of this aesthetic of Star Wars, but it's kind of like even on the Sith planet where the command center is being blown up, and you kind of see this cool almost like virtual drone shot of the command room before it gets blown up, and you can see all these bodies on fire, and it's just kind of like, I guess there's a sort of I suppose I always have a tendency to be a little bit too much of a realist in fiction and think of the real pragmatic effects of it, but it's like, wait, in real life in war, dying isn't actually that funny, but somehow in Star Wars and fiction, it's like, all right,
yeah. I enjoyed that moment.
Dozens of people got blown up, whatever. Being blown up left and right.
I enjoyed that moment when that commander, the Imperial commander, ran to the window at the front of the ship as it was blowing up, and then we kind of cut back to a big wide shot of the ship, and you can still kind of see him physically in the window, and it blows up, and you can see the shadow of him getting thrust forward into and then taken over by the flames.
That was very satisfying.
That was nice.
And there's also something very satisfying about them just sort of indiscriminately shooting stormtroopers, just and them just flying around and going limp.
But why is it that one shot always kills a stormtrooper, but anybody that's not a stormtrooper is only wounded?
And then the stormtroopers always miss when they shoot. They just have terrible hammers.
They're the worst. They're the worst trained people in the entire army.
There is a cool reference. I don't know if you've been watching The Mandalorian, but Mandalorian is pretty fun at poking fun at Star Wars, because there's the episode before last. The character played by Bill Burr is referred to as an Imperial sniper. And then the Mandalorian says, well, that's not saying much. And then he's like, I wasn't a stormtrooper, wise ass. So they're making fun of these things that are well known.
Well, and in fact, there's a very, it's quick subplot with former stormtroopers in talking about their experiences of kind of escaping. Almost sort of like, we were stormtroopers. What was the line where they said they asked us to kill civilians, and we said no. So this idea that stormtroopers have a conscience,
right.
And that's actually something with real soldiers in theater. One of the challenges historically in actual military conflicts is teaching soldiers to actually shoot other human beings,
right.
Because there is a psychological hang-up, and it's very natural, very human, where it's like you want to shoot them in the leg, or you want to shoot them in the arm, and shoot above their heads. You don't it's contrary to a lot of human instinct to just shoot someone in their center body mass or their head and kill them. So I liked seeing a little bit of that dimension added to stormtroopers and the nature of stormtroopers.
Yeah, that it gives them a background. It gives them a humanity, which we never really saw before in any of the Star Wars movies. Force Awakens.
Yeah, because they were always just kind of the Star Trek red shirts, where it's like, oh,
Yeah.
yep, and so nobody has to die in this scene.
A single blast, and they go flying. Apex says, hearing Qui-Gon Mace Anakin's voice sent chills down my spine. If only we saw Anakin's Force ghost. I think we got a lot of cameos. But I was also, hearing Darth Vader's voice was cool, and hearing the two versions of Obi-Wan, the Ewan McGregor and the Alec Guinness and Qui-Gon and all of those voices.
Is Hayden Christensen still acting? I don't
know. But that goes back to your Star Wars curse.
Yeah.
And he was a highly regarded young up-and-coming actor that they thought was like the next big thing, and
he's still pretty good. I believe in the last 3 or 4 years he was in something that was critically acclaimed, and he was lauded as being fantastic in it. But people he's almost box office poison now. Yeah, it's sad.
Yeah, Star Wars does that to people.
I mean, look at Luke Hamill. Yeah.
Not to say he hasn't gone on to have a successful life in some form of acting. I mean, as a voice actor in particular, he's done well.
And I mean, actors in franchises like this can always go to conventions, or
true.
But that's what all the Star Trek actors do. They just do conventions year round.
It's highly yeah. I have a friend, Anthony Scordi. He's in Battlefront. He plays the evil Imperial general, actually. Yeah. And he's like, oh, it was a voiceover gig and they used my likeness. And I did the mocap for it. And I was like, dude, you need to make like your Instagram all about that. And then he did. And now he's got like tens of thousands of followers. And I'm like, you're the bad guy. You're an Imperial general. You should people will love to like follow you and just forever, because it's actually a really cool thing that Star Wars and Star Trek and things like that can bring to people, is that that synergy between fan and performer.
Yeah.
What else did you like about the movie? Like story-wise, were you satisfied with how it wrapped up 9 movies?
Yeah, I was for the most part pretty satisfied with the resolution, where they went with things. It was a little bit on the nose with what you would expect was going to ultimately happen. But I think it was satisfying. We had to know who Rey was. They set that up from the beginning of Force Awakens, like, who is this person? And so she had to be related to somebody. Like, it was a given.
Which is...
that was kind of, I mean... I guess it that got a little bit too Games of Thrones for me. Like, the idea that force power is just kind of this genetic dynasty, and Rey is heir to this genetic throne.
I
don't know, but that wasn't as huge a fan. I mean, I guess I understand why they did it. It makes it gives a sense of continuity, but it's also just her character arc, like we said earlier, started with this idea that she was this nobody, this plebiscite, selling garbage.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm okay with that. I like the idea of the Last Jedi saying it doesn't matter where you're from or who you are, and that idea kind of carries over with Finn sort of sensing the Force, and I forget the other former stormtrooper, but they kind of conclude that it was the Force guiding them. It was the Force awakening them to, there was that callback, that wrapping up of that storyline. But ultimately, I feel I just feel that it's a missed opportunity to make Rey just a Palpatine, because you've got The Empire Strikes Back, and that moment when Darth Vader says, "No, I am your father," that blew people's minds. people were not expecting that. They weren't even sure that Darth Vader was human until you start to see his humanity in Empire, building up to that sequence, the lightsaber duel, where he reveals that he's his father, Luke's father. That is one of the best cinematic reveals ever in the history of movies. So the fact that we just keep kind of going back to that, it's not a surprise anymore.
No, exactly.
Yeah,
they set it up.
And, I mean,
they set it up in The Force Awakens. Who is Rey? What's her connection to whom? So it's like, is she Luke's daughter? Is she Luke's daughter? That's why everybody was saying, like, oh, she's Luke's daughter, duh, of course.
well,
she couldn't be. It's too obvious. So I think they chose the right powerful Jedi that we're familiar with to make her connected to, related to. And in the very first one, or in Empire anyway, they do kind of say that, like, lineage does play a factor in this, because I am Darth Vader and I'm the most powerful Jedi, and I need you, my son, to join me because I can tap into your powers, our family powers, to rule the world together. Not saying that only families have the Force, but obviously certain families, I guess,
Have the
use
midichlorians.
use it better than other people.
although the movie ends with sort of this, which in my mind is a pretty big untied plot hole. Maybe it'll lead to another side movie, that Palpatine had a kid. If, like,
Right.
Palpatine is de facto Rey's grandfather, and
Yes. And now that Palpatine's gone, or whatever, it's over with. But no, there is another.
There's always
another Palpatine. She has a brother.
Yeah, exactly. It's just going to be families. She should never have kids, really. Just like... So Bruce Wayne comments, it should have ended with Rey's eyes suddenly turning to Sith eyes. As she smiles, we hear Palpatine's evil laugh in the background as the camera pans up, implying that he successfully possessed Rey. We mentioned this last night, actually, that did his plan actually work? Because she does ultimately kill him, and that's what he wants. But then she also dies in the process. So,
But then she's brought back, so...
when she's brought back, so that's actually not a bad idea. And of course, Disney wants to make more movies, so I'm sure.
yeah.
No, there was an opportunity that they'd set up all along. Obviously, we know Kylo Ren's been conflicted from the very beginning. He's probably going to go good. And
Right.
they keep setting up that Rey is, like, maybe not able to ground herself and stay with the good side, and maybe she's going to turn dark.
Right.
And I thought maybe there was a chance that it could do a very, like, 180 flip where Kylo becomes our hero and Rey becomes our villain.
Yeah. Yeah, that could have worked. That would have worked for me.
But obviously they chose not to go that route. They went with the more vanilla,
Safe.
the more safe vanilla ending that most people would probably
Not get mad at.
accept
Yeah,
easier.
Yeah. I think, what about Kylo's arc? Now, we see him in Force Awakens commit patricide. He kills Han Solo. It's an unforgivable act. Let's just like, that's unforgivable.
It's actually one of the better moments in the movie. It was the I'm your father moment of this whole trilogy.
It really was.
Especially with Han having played such a huge role in that first installment.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, it's like a fucking Han Solo movie. I didn't expect this.
Yeah.
And I guess, they made me feel so safe with Han Solo that I felt like he was going to be a big part of this whole trilogy.
Right.
That when that happened, I was floored.
I was definitely upset by it, but I accepted it because I was like,
I accepted it as well, but it was a moment. It was it was a defining moment, and I think it should have been more of a defining moment for Kylo, that, like, he went that way.
Yes.
Instead of, like, he doesn't know if he wants to go that way.
And I do feel like I like the idea of Kylo's redemption in this, because they bring him back to that moment. I did not expect to see Han Solo in this film, and it was pretty cool that he was in it. They bring him back to that moment in his journey, and he decides he's decidedly taken the other path that he could have taken in that moment, which was to throw his saber away and turn good. And I like the idea of that redemption moment. Oh, but again, the clipping, the pacing of just not letting that breathe felt like it was just a moment on top of a moment on top of a moment.
I agree. I liked that.
Yeah, and of course, I guess
Go ahead.
Oh, I guess just that Leia had to die in order to awaken Ben Solo within Kylo, right. And she kind of foresaw and knew that. But yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, it's interesting because I guess when Ben Solo dies, he kind of does that disappearing thing, where that's a sign that someone is becoming good, becoming Force Ghost. Like that's an homage to how Obi-Wan died.
He turned back to the light
when Darth Vader struck him down.
Mm-hmm.
Where he just fades away and disappears.
How was that moment for you? I liked the fact that when Kylo became good, he was so not the actor Adam Driver. Whoever made the choice, he was at peace. You could see that he was at peace. The whole first 2.5 movies, he's just like, he's just coming out of his skin. And then when he becomes good, he is at rest and is at peace and has purpose. And that was such a cool little change in his character. What about that moment when he heals Rey? He brings her back from the edge. And they have that moment together. What do you guys think about that?
I guess
Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah. No, I mean, I guess healing like E.T. is kind of this new light side ability. As you go, the expanding the Deus Ex Machina abilities of the Force. So yeah, I mean, I guess it's cool. I guess I could roll with it. It wasn't disruptive.
Ignoring the ability itself as a new thing that we've just been introduced to, I'll have a little bit to say about that in a second here. The moment itself, I liked that they kissed.
Yeah, I did too.
Because there was always, especially in this movie, a connection that now that they're definitely not related to each other,
right,
we can maybe accept that they're going to get together. And when they did, I thought it was really great. Obviously, there was that laughable moment immediately following that I think kind of ruined the moment.
He's like,
that it could have been. They could have done it. This had the same same resolution, but maybe executed a little bit better.
The moment where they kiss. And he keels over and fades away.
Yeah. Maybe even if I think it would have been better if maybe he faded away while they were kissing. Yeah. Or if we saw that he was on the verge of death before they kissed. Because I didn't know that he was going to die.
Yeah, that would have been great if he... I almost think it would have been a better choice, in my own professional opinion, that if he kind of put all of his energy into her to bring her back and then started to kind of fall, and then she saw that he was falling, then she goes to hold him, cuddle him or whatever, and then gives him a kiss, and then he fades away. That would have been maybe a little bit more...
Yeah, much more poignant.
Less of a comical moment, because people cheered when they kissed, and then when he keeled over, they laughed.
Yeah.
That's not the reaction I think JJ was going for.
Yeah, no, it was a broken moment, unfortunately. Yeah. In a moment that I thought was a pretty good moment.
Yeah.
Going back to that power of healing, I don't have a problem with it being a power, but I think I do have a problem with Rey possessing that power, because if nobody had done that before, then I feel like that's a power that you've got to be particularly strong in the Force to have. And she's still learning her Force and her Force abilities, and I don't think maybe she's to that level. Maybe Kylo is to that level.
Yeah. Although Rey as a character is always written as somehow able to do very advanced Jedi things and Force things. Even like from her first fight with Kylo Ren, presumably Kylo is a much more advanced Jedi. Able to suspend blaster shots in midair and then unpause them and do all these things we hadn't seen before. Whereas Rey just somehow naturally is this Mozart or this Einstein of the Force and able to have that. But what about the scene where she's able to actually stop the ship from taking off? I
think that all harkens back to her lineage and the fact that she possesses this ability to use these powers, but I don't think she knows how to harness them yet. That's her struggle, is she doesn't know how to use them, or she partially knows how to use them. And that scene in particular is a perfect example of that, because she stops the ship and everyone's like, holy shit, she's gotten powerful. Holy shit. And then Adam Driver's all like, no, fuck you, this isn't happening, I've got that power too. And they have that struggle, and she has that moment where she wants so badly to beat him that she loses focus on what she was actually trying to accomplish by saving the ship, and in turn kills Chewbacca.
Quote unquote.
By the way, I'd have to rewatch it, but I never saw Chewbacca get on a second transporter.
No, it didn't happen.
That seemed like
that was just
like a
very forced
throwaway line. Oh yeah, he's still alive.
Yeah, no, I was a little bit upset.
There was only one.
I think he was dead, and he should have been dead. And then their way of making him not dead was just that was a different transport, and the one he was on, they didn't see it ever go off or anything.
They're like, you can't kill Chewie. You just can't kill the dog. You can't kill the family.
I wouldn't have minded it if they just had a better explanation about why he's still alive.
I honestly thought they'd killed Chewie when I was kind of
I feel
because they killed Han Solo in episode 7.
I thought she killed Chewie. That was another potential big turning point there. That
I was convinced that Chewie and Lando were going to get together and kamikaze the Falcon at some point. I don't know why. I just thought that there was going to be let's do the Falcon, Chewie, and Lando all at once, and by transitive L3. I don't know. You didn't see Solo, so L3 is. Well, I'm not going to spoil that.
Solo.
What were you going to say, Shay?
Oh no, I actually have to go. But
fair enough. Thank you so much for joining us. Overall,
a lovely conversation.
It was indeed. So give us your summation of what you feel.
My summation.
Yeah, give us your dissertation on Star Wars, on all 9 films. Go.
No, I think episode 9 is cool. I think it's worth seeing. Okay. Like I said, wouldn't be the first one I saw, but it's a nice button. I'm terrible to watch movies with, because even then it's I'm watching every movie and I'm being like, oh, that's composite shot, that's a dolly shot, that's a they got a mouse click in the audio there. Oh, they have a plosive. I'm dissecting it like it's on a Final Cut timeline all through watching it. So but I think they did a good job, for what the challenge was. It'll be interesting to see where the franchise goes, and if Disney continues this, we need to release a Star Wars movie every single year pace of content making for the franchise.
Your phone buzzed. So out of 5, how many froze do you give Star Wars Episode 9?
Ooh. I never thought of things in terms of froze.
I'm here to change your.
Can we part the fro?
How small of the divisions can I be? It's somewhere between 4.5 and 5 froze.
4.5 and 5 froze out of 5.
No.
That's
I guess I'd say 4.5 if I had to.
Okay. Well, thank you, Tay. Thank you for your input. Thank you for coming and hanging out with us. May the Force be with you. Enjoy your holidays, and people out there, follow Tay at Zonday.
All right, thank you so much. All right, bye-bye.
See you later.
Oh wait, that's flipping my camera again. Here we go. All right, bye-bye.
We'll take Tay's spot right here.
We're gonna continue on with the
new Tay. Right there.
We'll continue on and wrap it up.
Tay Baka.
So, in summation, what do you feel that this movie accomplished? As far as what do you think it succeeded at accomplishing?
I think it succeeded at tying everything up nicely that they had set up. I don't know if, in the grandest scheme of things, that we got anything new that we didn't get from the original trilogy that had to be further explored. But it was a fun ride, nonetheless.
It definitely, you know what? It was definitely for me, it was a ride with moments of, like I said to you, I was observing my reactions to the movie, and I was just kind of like, I was engaged the whole time because there's so many things just coming at you.
It was hard not to be.
And there were genuine moments of like, oh, that's cool. Oh, that was cool. I didn't see that coming. So overall, I liked it.
Yeah, overall I liked it. Better than any of the 3 prequels. Maybe on par with Return of the Jedi if I'm like comparing like where I like things.
That's fair.
I wouldn't say I like it better than the first 2, but Jedi was my least favorite of the original 3.
Right. It used to be my favorite.
And I think if only those 3 and this one existed, I think this would probably fit in somewhere maybe even above Jedi. I might say Star Wars Empire, then this, then Jedi. I don't know how I feel about it compared to, say, Force Awakens. I need to rewatch Force Awakens again. It might be my 3rd favorite of the 9 Star Wars movies.
Interesting. I don't know where to rank it yet. I'm going to have to watch it again. Overall, I mentioned that I do like it. I don't... There were moments, though, we were asked if what annoyed us. I cannot really get past the idea of the family lineages just being this crutch of the Star Wars universe. Because if you think about this entire galaxy, how big it is, why does it have to come down to 2 families? But again, maybe that's what the entire galaxy balances on. The crux of the Skywalker lineage and then the Palpatine lineage, and how they come together, and how they're, one is ultimately good, one is ultimately evil, and the evil is always trying to influence, pull the,
Or that's just this particular story, because we know there's all these offshoot stories abound.
That's true.
One of the things that annoyed me about this particular one was that they kept introducing like brand new characters that didn't have a lot of purpose. Or had very little purpose. We talked about the Kerry Russell character that was like the Poe's love interest-ish. I felt like she didn't really have a purpose in there other than like they felt like we need to give one of our main guys a love interest, sorta.
Yeah. Give him what... I didn't mind that. I like that. I like that they had a history and then it was palpable.
I just didn't feel like she had much of a purpose in the movie. Like, if they were going to introduce a character, have her be a bigger part of the story.
Yeah.
Same with that other former stormtrooper girl that was part of a band of former stormtroopers. Like, I would have liked to have seen that band of former stormtroopers be more important to the story.
Yeah.
And then it was just ultimately just like this one extra girl that was just hanging around with everybody.
Right.
That didn't have a purpose or like a task or any big moment. You could even say that about Rose, who in the previous film was a very big character and then was just sort of relegated to the background in this one.
Right.
She should have had a bigger role. She was brought in and made a bigger role.
But that, that's sort of Ryan undoing.
It was the Ryan undoing and the Ryan and the JJ undoing Ryan.
Exactly. So it's kind of, and even the idea of Maz Kanata. I mean, Maz Kanata was set up in the first one to be this sort of sage person. And apparently, Lupita Nyong'o, she does the mocap and the voice for that, was contracted for 3 movies, so they just reduced her role so small in episode 8, and in this one, they had to kind of put her off to the side again.
Yeah,
too.
another character that was kind of brought in and not used.
Right. Even again, another character that was brought in, not really used, was General Phasma.
Yeah.
Captain Phasma. So, I mean, they didn't use her to the greatest extent, then they kill her off.
And that's it. And then that's it.
And that's it.
And I think they did that too much in these films as a whole. My annoyance in this one movie was that they did it within the movie itself, rather than say, we have a character, Benicio del Toro's character in The Last Jedi. I actually liked that character a lot.
Yeah.
And then now he's gone. Not part of this film at all.
He just kind
just
of
dispatched.
Great
and
Grunberg.
let's have a new character that we bring in that just doesn't do anything either.
Yeah. What's up, K-Ferg? Yeah, I agree. How could you not think of things in froze? Everything is in terms of froze in my world. Canomination, I don't know how to say that. Kylo's arc was the best of his trilogy, in my opinion. I agree with that. I think that we did see a decent enough change. I knew he was going to be redeemed, though. I mean, I feel like that was just a foregone conclusion from the moment he kills his father. Because you're like, how can he come back from this? I need to see and be on board with how he can come back with this, which I think Episode 8 did such a really good job with, was humanizing Kylo Ren and connecting him with Rey and showing that, I think the best moment for me, one of the best moments for me in this entire new sequel trilogy, is the throne room when Snoke gets dispatched and then they fight back to back. I think that was such a well built up moment.
Yeah, I agree. I like that moment as well.
Yeah. And
but then they didn't go with the direction that it should have gone ultimately.
No. But seeing Kylo turn good, I bought it. Adam Driver sold it. He was at ease. He was calm. Like he found himself because he'd been fighting himself for 3 movies, and then he became whole in the end.
I'll give it 4 froze.
4 froze out of 5. I'm gonna give it 3 froze out of 5. I'm gonna be the most critical about it. I'm gonna take an entire fro away. It's a throwaway
For the pacing.
For the pacing, an entire throwaway for just, crowbarring in the Palpatine connection. Those 2 things took a lot away from me from the movie, but the movie is adventurous. Lando is so energized and charismatic that I was so surprised and delighted to see, because I thought, just from seeing Billy D be chill, walking around with his staff, I thought Lando was going to be like, what's my line? Huh? What's my line? Because he's an older guy. Nope. Full-on Lando.
Yeah.
Just completely.
Actually, I've worked with a good number of actors where I've thought, wow, this person's like not even like of their right mind anymore.
Yeah.
And like how is this ever going to work? But then ultimately, somehow they manage to pull it together for those moments when they really need to.
Yeah.
And then
training
they
comes
get it
in.
done. Yeah.
The training comes in. And Billy D. Williams, good actor, so he was able to be Lando again. Throne Room fight was cool. I agree. 3.599999 froze out of 5.
Yeah.
K-Ferg, is that your official fro rating? Let us know. Well, this has been a Star Wars tradition that we've been doing this last few years. I know we did this for you and I.
This is our 3rd now.
This is our 3rd.
3 movies.
It might have been 4.
4 if you include the
Force Awakens and Rogue One.
Rogue One, yeah.
Force Awakens, Rogue One.
Or maybe we didn't do one for Force Awakens.
Did we not? Maybe we. I don't know. Go check on the channel to see if we actually did one of these for Force Awakens. I'm pretty sure there is definitely a review up there. But that was so many years ago, I can't remember. If you guys remember, let me know.
I would probably put Rogue One in there above this movie as my 3rd favorite Star Wars movie.
I watched Rogue One last year again, probably for the third or fourth time, and I liked it a lot. I watched it with my parents, who my father loves war movies. Grew up watching war movies and westerns, and I watched it with him, and I was like, oh, I get the appeal now. I was kind of going into it maybe with a different expectation, but just watching it for what it is, it's a great war movie.
It's a war movie. It's a western set in space. I mean, the original one.
Absolutely.
The original Star Wars. The original script of Star Wars that George Lucas wrote was, I want to write a western that takes place in space.
Yep. And he fused the Akira Kurosawa vibe in there with like the samurai movies, with being the Jedi, and that's what I do love about the classic cinematic Star Wars. But this movie is taking things to a new level, to a modern level, like Tay was saying. The modern filmmaking, the millennial generation, the YouTube generation. But things change. George Lucas changed cinema with introducing Star Wars. He's changed the whole idea of going to the cinema. He changed how cinemas are constructed because of the THX sound systems and the seating and everything. So I guess if you're going to make a Star Wars movie, you're going to want to change things. You're going to want to do a paradigm shift. Did this change your life?
No.
It didn't change my life either. It's worth seeing, though, if you're a fan of Star Wars. If you're a fan of movies, you might be a little bit more critical. But if you want to know how everything ends, go see the movie. And just eat a whole bin of popcorn like I did.
And drink some wine.
Thank you guys for joining me. Remember to leave a comment below. Thank you, Corey, for joining me, and Zonday for joining me, and you for joining all of us and participating in the comments. I'm just going to wrap up by reading some of these. Would either of you change the ending?
Ooh. Did we talk about this on the air yet? I would have liked to have seen... no. I think I would just like to have seen that moment with Kylo been portrayed a little bit more poignantly.
Yeah.
Or perhaps that Rey was actually dead, and Kylo was good, and that's it. And then he's going on, and maybe he goes back to Tatooine and has this moment like, this is my family lineage, and I am the last Skywalker.
Right. And there was a literal rise of Skywalker when Kylo came up out. It's like the Dark Knight Rises. He climbs up out of the pit. There was that literal rise of Skywalker. And I like the title because it did bring, at the end, it brought this idea as like,
who's the rise of Skywalker?
Yeah, which is the Skywalker? Does Skywalker, I love that. The ending, if I would not change at all. The very ending. Epilogue
was beautiful.
It was perfect. I think that was such a perfect ending to the series that, the journey started in the movies in that spot with Luke, and it all wrapped up again, and then she became the next Skywalker. Yeah. She changed allegiances, or she didn't have an allegiance. She chose an allegiance.
Or even more so, this goes to a comparison to life situations that throughout these 3 movies, 2.5 of them anyway, she didn't have a last name. She didn't know who she was, right. But she was adopted by this family, and she learned who her father was, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she likes who her father is or wants to be associated with that person. And at the end, when somebody says, "Who are you?" she says, "Well, you know what?
I can decide that.
I am a Skywalker, because that's who raised me."
Right. Yeah.
And not a Palpatine, because that's my bloodline.
It was that ending, I think, was choice. I think that was
with her surviving, that was the best ending to have.
Absolutely. And with that, we're going to end this stream. I hope you guys have a happy holiday. I'll be back next year. We're going to miss a week next week, but I'm gonna be eating lasagna and M&Ms. So I hope you guys solid choices there. Not at the same time, but in rapid
solid.
In rapid succession for sure. Thank you guys so much. Leave a comment, like and share, subscribe, and follow Corey at
Hashtag We Love Corey.
Hashtag We Love Corey. I'm gonna at hashtag We Love Corey. I'm gonna leave a link to his social media in the comments in the description box below. Thank you guys so much. We love you. We love Corey.
Bye.
Bye. Hold on. I'm just gonna stop the recording.